जय श्री श्री राधा माधव की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, entitled The Samam Bonam, Chapter 13, entitled Brahma Stealing the Boys and Calves, verse number 49. Angri mastakam apurnas tulasi navadamabhi कोमलय सर्वगात्रेषु भूरि पुण्यवद अर्पिते आंग्री मस्तकम आपूर्णास तुलसी नवदामभि कोमलय सर्वगात्रेषु भूरि पुण्यवद अर्पिते आंग्री मस्तकमापूर्णास तुलसी नवदामभि कोमलय सर्वगात्रेषु भूरि पुण्यवदर्पिते। संपूर्ण तुलसी नवदामभि मलय सर्वगात्रेषु भूरि पुण्यवदर्पिते आंग्री मस्तकमापूर्णास तुलसी नवदामभि कोमलय सर्वगात्रेषु भूरि पुण्यवदर्पिते आंग्री मस्तकमापूर्णास तुलसी नवदामभि कोमलय सर्वगात्रेषु भूरि पुण्यवदर्पिते। कोमलय सर्वगात्रेषु माताजी। Angrimastakam, from the feet up to the top of the head. Apurna, fully decorated. Tulasi Navadamabhi, with garlands of fresh tulasi leaves. Komale, tender, soft. Sarvagatreshu, on all the limbs of the body. Bhuri Punyavatarpite, which were offered by devotees engaged in the greatest pious activity, worshipping the Supreme Lord by hearing, chanting, and so on. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation: every part of their bodies, from their feet to the top of their heads, was fully decorated with fresh, tender garlands of tulasi leaves offered by devotees engaged in worshipping the Lord by the greatest pious activities, namely hearing and chanting. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Bhuri Punyavad Arpite is significant in these words. These forms of Vishnu were worshipped by those who had performed pious activities, Sukritibhi, for many births, and who were constantly engaged in devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Bhakti, devotional service, is the engagement of those who have performed highly developed pious activities. The accumulation of pious activities has already been mentioned elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.12.11, where Shukadeva Goswami says, Itham satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya ashritanam naradarakena sakam vijaru krita punya punja. Those who are engaged in self-realization, appreciating the Brahm effulgence of the Lord, and those engaged in devotional service, accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, as well as those who are under the clutches of Maya, thinking the Lord an ordinary person, cannot understand that certain exalted personalities, after accumulating volumes of pious activities, are now playing with the Lord in friendship as cowherd boys. In our Krishna Balram temple in Vrindavan, there is a tamal tree that covers an entire corner of the courtyard. Before there was a temple, the tree was lying neglected, but now it has developed very luxuriantly, covering the whole corner of the courtyard. This is a sign of Bhuri Punya. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 13, verse number 49. Translation. Every part of their bodies, from their feet to the top of their heads, was fully decorated with fresh, tender garlands of tulasi leaves offered by devotees engaged in worshipping the Lord by the greatest pious activities, namely hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing to read Brahma Vimohan Leela. And now we are at Vimohan, wherein Brahma has come back to see what is happening, how are things in Vrindavan after I stole the calves and the cowherd boys. And to his surprise, Brahma sees all of them present. The calves and the boys whom Brahma stole were present. And Brahma recalls that they can't be here because they are somewhere else, hidden by Brahma. And they can't overcome Brahma's potency because Brahma's potency is higher. So one person cannot be at two places. If you get information that your friend is at two different places at same time, would you agree? No? Even if it is authentic, bona fide information, you will still doubt. A pure devotee comes and tells you, you still doubt. You will say, you are not wrong, but there's something fishy going on. And what if it's a clear 100% correct information that your friend is at two different places at the same time? You will be bewildered. Vimohan. You will think whole life my logic, whatever I knew, is not correct. Up till now, whatever I studied and experienced is not correct. Up till now, I thought one person cannot be at two different places at same time, but it is possible. So I have to again start from ABCD. Because our intelligence cannot accept contradiction. We need to resolve it in order to sleep peacefully. If there is a contradictory information input to us, then we cannot sleep. We'll have to resolve it. We have to sort it out. If A is true, then minus A has to be false. Whole science is based on this simple logic. If A is true and minus A is also true, that's unscientific. That's unacceptable. If this is agreed fact, then all scientists will have to commit suicide. Because all theories are based on this logic that contradictions don't exist. So with this thought process, somebody tries to understand Krishna, he will fail. And he will conclude that such a personality does not exist because there are lots of contradictions. Hence, science cannot prove the existence of God. And hence, science cannot disprove the existence of God. Both is not possible through modern science. Neither they can prove that God exists, neither they can disprove that God exists. Both is not possible, because this is beyond their subject matter. Brahma got bewildered. So he saw the same calves and cowherd boys present in front of him, whom he has hidden somewhere else. And he is 100% sure they can't escape that place, because his potency is still covering. So then, in this bewilderment, his natural question is, who are these then? And before he even could figure out, each of the calf and each of the sakha, they transformed into four-handed Vishnu forms. Not one, not two, not three, not 10, hundreds of Vishnu forms. Now what must be his bewilderment? He is highly bewildered now. So many Vishnu forms. The calf becomes Vishnu, and the cowherd boy becomes Vishnu with 4 hands and all the paraphernalia, with yellow dhoti and highly effulgent body, and Shank Chakra Gada Padma and Vaijayanti garland and Srivatsa and Kaustubh Mani and crown and curly black hairs, smiling on Brahma, as if saying, Ab bata tu. As if teasing. Brahma is highly bewildered. And that same Vishnu Murtis, they are decorated very nicely with so many ornaments. Diamond, pearl, golden, gold, bangles, rings, necklaces, anklets, armlets, and waist chain, so many ornaments. But highlight of all these ornaments is Tulsi garlands. Tulsi garland which are decorating all the limbs of Lord Vishnu. Tulsi garland in the neck, Tulsi garland in the hands, wrist, Tulsi garland in his feet, lotus feet. And the Tulsi garland and neck goes below, goes till his knees. Krishna wears garlands till his knees. Very attractive. And because of the presence of the leaves and the flowers, there are lots of bees always buzzing around those fragrant flowers and fragrant leaves. Zzz, going on. And Brahma comes to know these leaves, these Tulsi garlands, fresh, soft leaves, they are made by personalities who are much, much higher than Brahma. Much, much higher than Brahma. Bhuri Punya. Those who have accumulated extensive accumulation of punya, pious activities, much, much higher than Brahma, they have been given this eligibility to make garlands for Vishnu. And Brahma is trying to play with that Vishnu, whom is not even eligible to make a garland. He is playing with that Vishnu. How humbled Brahma becomes. And that's why the next chapter, the prayers of Lord Brahma, are amazing. So why Tulsi garlands? Because Tulsi Devi is highly dear to Lord Vishnu. Soft, fresh Tulsi leaves are always offered to Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. So dear that Krishna does not eat an offering when Tulsi leaf is not present. So that's the niyam of deity worship, that whenever there is an offering, there should be Tulsi leaf. So when you see Rajbhog offering, in every item there are Tulsi leaves decorating. In every bowl and items in the plate and water, everywhere there is Tulsi leaf. Then only Krishna accepts, because presence of Tulsi Maharani is symbolic of love. If you love someone, you will offer what the person likes. And Krishna likes Tulsi Maharani. She is a pure devotee, Maha Bhagavat, coming in the form of a plant to offer service to Krishna. Easily served, easily to take care, and present everywhere. In every house she goes happily and tolerates all the climates to offer blessings to the family members. In Vrindavan you will see all pervasive, abundant, so many Tulsi plants. In fact, the growth of Tulsi Maharani luxuriantly is an indication that good devotional service is happening by devotees staying there. Tulsi Maharani is pleased when she sees devotees are performing nice service to Krishna, and she grows luxuriantly, joyfully, and she blesses. She can gift us Vrindavan. She can give us Krishna Prem. She can give us shelter and service at the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari. As if it is her property, she can just give, take. She is so powerful. That's why every day we worship Tulsi Maharani. We offer obeisances. We sing her glories, Aarti and circumambulation, and we offer her water. And whenever we visit temple, we first go to Tulsi Maharani, offer our obeisances, and offer prayers, requesting blessings for pure devotional service, Krishna Bhakti, Vishnu Bhakti, to award us Bhakti, the highest gift, the highest treasure. Krishna is highly pleased. And also, Yuga Dharma is Harinam Sankirtan, chanting of holy name of Krishna. And when same chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is performed in front of Tulsi Maharani, the potency increases, the power of the holy name increases. So it's a very good habit that every day we chant in front of Tulsi Maharani. Like devotees sit in the temple and Tulsi Maharani is present, and we chant in front of her, and we chant on Tulsi beads, and we always have Tulsi Kanti on our neck, Tulsi Maharani's presence on our body. This is highly beneficial for our spiritual life. So we should make it an habit to chant every day in the temple hall, in the temple room, rather than going away. Because we are chanting in presence of Tulsi Maharani, that gives more potency to our chanting. Srila Haridas Thakur used to chant in front of Tulsi Maharani. He is Namacharya Haridas Thakur. He is the Acharya of the holy name. And we learn from him. We get inspiration from him. So he would chant in front of Tulsi Maharani. 192 rounds, 64 rounds plus 64 rounds plus 64 rounds. 192 rounds. So Srila Prabhupada writes, at least we can chant 16 rounds in front of Tulsi Maharani. Is that difficult? That's not difficult. And when that prostitute came to deviate Srila Haridas Thakur's mind for 3 nights continuously, and she got an opportunity to hear the pure holy name emanating from the lips of Haridas Thakur, her mind changed. And she took shelter of Haridas Thakur, and what did he instruct her? He instructed her, you sit here and chant 3 lakh holy names in front of Tulsi Maharani. And in fact, 500 years before, that prostitute, when she went to meet Haridas Thakur, what did she do first? She offered obeisances to Tulsi Maharani. What a culture! Prostitute going to deviate a sadhu, but she offers obeisances to Tulsi Maharani. So Tulsi Maharani easily offers blessings. When Narad Muni instructed Mrigari, he also instructed the same thing, to leave everything and in one cloth with his wife go to the forest, make a small kutia and welcome Tulsi Maharani and chant every day in front of Tulsi Maharani, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is highly effective process. We anyway have to chant 16 rounds every day. So we should make it a habit to chant in temple hall. Should make it a habit to chant in presence of Tulsi Maharani. So the same chanting will be more effective. We'll receive more blessings and faster purification and rapid growth in our spiritual life. So these Tulsi garlands offered to Vishnu were offered by the great devotees. This refers to sadhana siddha, bhuri punya, who have accumulated lots and lots of pious credits. These pious credits are not material piety. These are not some social service or some philanthropic activity. These pious credits are chanting, hearing, worshipping, offering obeisances, serving Krishna, serving devotees. These are the accumulation of pious credits. We chant every day, we hear Srimad Bhagavatam every day, We offer obeisances every day, we attend Mangalarti every day, we honor Prasadam every day, we do devotional service every day. It's accumulating, it's accumulating. And we should keep accumulating more and more so that one day we become perfect. That is sadhana. Sadhana means done every day. It may look like very small efforts and hardly significant results. But when they are accumulated, one day we will see a very big result. Like a plant or a seed, every day you water and every day you take photo. It look like same every day. Every day you water and one day you will have a fruit. You are just doing watering. Every day watering has a different impact on the plant. And the plant grows, and one day becomes a tree and gives flowers and fruits. Hundreds of fruits. The only thing you gave is water. And the tree is giving mango. Is there any machine? You put water every day and mango come out. Or apple or chiku. But see these trees, what machines are they? You just put water and they gather sunlight. And mango comes, apple comes, chiku comes, flower comes. That's Krishna's creation. So this accumulation gives very significant result. We see in the village, Matajis, they fill water in a well, from a well, and there's a rope. And that rope every day is pushed down and brought up, and that creates friction on the rock which surrounds the well. And eventually there is cut in the rock. Cut in the stone. If you ask anybody, take this stone and take this rope and cut it, they will say, not possible. But every day done, can cut. Not just rope cutting a stone, one drop of water, if it falls every day at one location, you will have a hole there. Even if it is a stone. Water making hole in stone. So what is the significance here is every day, accumulated force. So we chant every day. We pay obeisances every day, multiple times. We hear Bhagavatam every day. We read every day. We keep on doing every day. We will grow spiritually. The baby drinks milk every day and the baby grows. And we eat every day, we honor every day, and the body is growing. Weight is growing. So every day we perform devotional service, sadhana, our heart becomes purified. When we chant without offenses, lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion go away. And after we get purified, we continue to chant every day. We develop love for Krishna. 500 years before, the king of Bengal was Nawab Hussain Shah. So one day he went to his room and he removed his cloth, upper cloth, kurta. So the queen, she saw some mark on his back. And she asked, Maharaj, what is this mark? The king said, there is one Hindu Jamindar, Subudhi Roy. He hit me with a chabuk. That's the mark. The queen got angry. He said, how can he hit the king? Right now, kill him. Hang him until death. Nawab Hussain Shah said, no, he didn't hit me today. He hit me many years before when I was a small boy. And at that time, I was not the king. I was staying on the street boy, anath, orphan. When the central government became Muslim, they wanted to make a Muslim boy king of Bengal. So they found a street boy, they made him the king. That's Nawab Hussain Shah. Orphan boy. So he said, but that time I was a street boy. The queen said, so what? Now you are a king, you kill him. He said, no, Subudhi Rai is like my father. I was on the street, having nothing to eat. He picked me up from the street, took me to his house. He fed me and he gave me place to stay and clothes to wear and maintained me. And in return, I would do some work for him. And one day I did a big mistake. And he got angry and he hit me. But he was very kind, he didn't throw me out, he continued to maintain me. So this mark is that time. So he's like my father, I can't kill him. But the queen said, no, you kill him. She started nagging. And when a wife nags, even a king has trouble. The king said, look, I can't kill. But she kept on requesting. So finally, king said, look, I can't kill him, but I can do one thing. I can throw water on him from my glass, from my pitcher. At that time, the misconception was that if a Muslim fellow takes water from his glass and puts on a Hindu fellow, that Hindu becomes Muslim. There is nothing scriptural in this, but that time the conception was. So that's how many population became Muslim, through water. So Queen said, yes, do it, because it was equivalent to death. When a person converts like this, the other society of Hindus in the village, they will ostracize him, they will throw him out. He will be on the street, everything will be gone. Property, reputation, name, contacts, position, family, house. So it's equivalent to death. So Queen said, do it. And next day Nawab Hussain Shah put water on him. And he became Muslim. Everybody ostracized him in the village. He was a big landlord with many properties. Now he was on the street, bankrupt, zero balance. So then Subudhi Rai thought that since many days I am thinking to take sannyas, but I was not getting opportunity because I had so many responsibilities, family and village and properties and land, staff. Now it's good opportunity, I can take sannyas. Nothing. So he straight went to Kashi, Banaras. And he thought, before taking sannyas, let me become Hindu again. So how to become Hindu? Now a Hindu throwing water will not work, that was no such rule. So he went to some local panditas and narrated his story. He said, how can I become Hindu again? They said, look, there is only one way. He said, you take pure cow ghee, and boil it. And boiling pure hot cow ghee, you drink it. You will become Hindu. Subudhi Rai said, hey, wait a minute. If I take hot, boiling, pure cow ghee, I will die. They said, right. If you die with ghee, next life you'll take birth from a Hindu mother. That's how you'll become Hindu. He said, I want second opinion. So he went to some other scholars and they gave some different opinion. So he was confused. During that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to Kashi, Varanasi. And he would chant on the streets, Harinam Sankirtan. And hundreds and thousands of people would follow him chanting and dancing whole day. He became very popular. So much so that every day, early morning Mangala Arati, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to the temple of Lord Shiva, Vishwanath in Kashi, big temple. Every day hundreds of people would come early morning to the temple to take darshan of Lord Shiva. Every day thousands of people would come to the temple of Lord Shiva early morning to take darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So popular. So Subudhi Rai also went to take darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he got an opportunity to talk to him, and he narrated his whole story and told him, what should I do? Asked him, what should I do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, forget this ghee business. Just go to Vrindavan Dham, and there without offenses you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If you chant without offenses the holy name of Krishna, your heart will be purified of all sinful activities. Your heart will be purified of all anarthas. And with the pure heart, if you continue to chant pure holy name, you will receive Krishna Prem. That's the accumulation. Keep chanting and hearing, will get pure. The anarthas will go away. The miseries will go away. The distress will go away. The attachment will go away. But we don't stop there. We keep chanting. We get taste, we get attachment to Krishna, we get emotional love for Krishna, we get Krishna Prem, our rasa is revealed, and we continue to serve Krishna in that siddhi, in that perfection. That's Bhuri Punya, doing it every day. So we are very fortunate, we have this process which can make us Bhuri Punya, which can make us like that. So we practice it every day without fail. More and more opportunities we have. We should chant, we should read, we should hear, we should offer obeisances, we should do Vaishnava Seva. And it's getting added. We may not realize, but it's getting added. Like a grass. Suppose there's a dry grass. It comes in contact with fire, immediately it will catch fire. But if there is a wet grass and it comes in contact with fire, will it catch fire? No. But does it mean there is no benefit? There is benefit. What is the benefit? The fire is making the wet grass dry. After few minutes or hours of fire making the wet grass dry, it will catch fire. So in the same way we read, once you attend Rath Yatra, you will get liberated. Once you chant holy name, you will get Krishna Prem. This is all true if we are dry. But if you are not dry, but we are wet, wet means addition of moisture, addition of three modes of material nature. It will not be unbeneficial, it will not be waste. As we keep on chanting, the wetness will remove, the wetness will reduce. And we keep on chanting, more wetness is going. We keep on chanting, one day we become dry and then we'll catch fire. That fire is Krishna Prem. So fire makes wet grass dry and fire makes dry grass burning. In the same way, chanting first will purify us by all three modes of material nature we transcend. And the same chanting, we don't have to change the process. The same chanting will give Krishna prema. The process doesn't have to be changed, but the effect will change as we have a different state of our consciousness. The input is same, but the output will be different every time. So we keep practicing this process. But the only problem is, in morning we chant and become dry. And evening we do something else. We do offenses. The next day morning we chant, again we are wet, and Harinam says, "Arey, kal to isko sukhaya, kya ho gaya isko? Yesterday I dried him, today he was to get Krishna prem, again he became wet, foolish boy." So we should not do offenses. Don't put wet grass in fire, and before it catches fire, remove it and put it in water. Then again put it in fire. Then how will it work? Then it will take millions of years. So we should be careful not to do offenses. Naam aprad, Vaishnava aprad, Shastra aprad, Guru aprad, DT, Seva aprad. We should not do offenses. When we chant without offenses, when we perform devotional service without offenses, when we follow Vaishnava etiquette, we don't do Vaishnava aprad, then the holy name acts fast. And we become quickly dry. And then we catch fire. And we become a lover of Krishna. And we become a nice devotee. People like to spend time with us. People like to talk to us. People like to hear from us. And we enjoy Krishna consciousness. And others enjoy our company. But if we are not careful, the three modes are influencing us and our behavior, then we will disturb other devotees. We'll hurt their heart. And then Radha Rasbehari will not be pleased. So this process is very nice. We should keep on performing more chanting, more reading, more hearing, more seva, more obeisances, more Mahaprasad. Should keep on adding Krishna in our consciousness, connecting to Krishna, accumulate, and then we grow nicely. And Srila Prabhupada gives very nice example of Tamal tree in Vrindavan temple. Those who have visited Vrindavan temple know Tamal tree. When Vrindavan temple was about to be constructed, the original design was such that that tree had to be cut. And they had a discussion with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was not saying yes, not saying no, so still it was going on. And when Prabhupada came to know it's a Tamal tree, he put his foot down. No, change the design, we will not cut the tree. The tree was just in the forest, that land was forest, neglected. So then they redo the design so that there is a courtyard, there is nothing covering up. Earlier they were planning a bigger temple hall. So they redid the design. And then every day kirtan going on in the temple, deities are there. That tree started growing luxuriantly and nicely. And Prabhupada was so happy. Morning, afternoon, evening, when Prabhupada would come, he would sit under that tree on a rocking chair. And he would give darshan to devotees. He would lead kirtan. And he would hear classes. He was very happy there. And Tamal tree are very few in Vrindavan. And Tamal tree is very closely related to Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani likes Tamal tree because the color of Tamal tree same as color of Shyam Sundar's body. So in ecstasy, Srimati Radharani would see Tamal tree and see Krishna present there, and she would go and embrace. And Tamal tree is blackish and doesn't grow straight, crooked like Krishna is crooked, and little rough. And Krishna sometimes is rough, playing with the heart of his devotees like Srimati Radharani. So Prabhupada says that example of Bhuri Punya, by hearing and chanting, that tree is growing luxuriantly. So we also have joined here to grow in spiritual life. That's our purpose, spiritual growth, not material growth. So we grow by regularly hearing and chanting, and that should be our main activity. To chant the holy name of Krishna, to hear the holy name of Krishna, to dance and to hear Bhagavatam, read Bhagavatam, attend Mangalarti, Guru Puja, and do our service. Associate with Vaishnavas, talk about Krishna. That's the main thing. That is the only thing. Nothing else is required. And we continue doing that, we grow in spiritual life. And finally, by Krishna's mercy, we go back home, back to Godhead. No more birth in this world. So this human form of life, we have come to ISKCON, we have taken up the process of bhakti, we have started, now we have to complete it. Not one more birth, not next birth, again 9 months in the womb of the mother, again ABCD, again Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. We don't have to do that again. This life, last life. This life, we should be determined to practice nice bhakti and go back home, back to Godhead. So this nice opportunity we have to chant and hear, and we should seriously do it without offenses. Okay, we will end here. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If there are any comments or any questions, you may please ask. Panchratna Prabhu, you want to add anything? Hare Krishna. Yes, Saurav.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, you mentioned about offering food to Lord Krishna with love and devotion, and tulsi leaves are a symbol of love. And Krishna does not accept anything which is not offered with tulsi leaves. So, when in Vrindavan, when cowherd boys used to sit and eat together, so does all the food stuff that was prepared there, did all of those foodstuffs had tulsi leaves in it? And when so many times, almost when Lord Krishna used to eat, do they used to offer with tulsi leaves also?
So that situation is different from our situation. We don't have love. Still we want Krishna to eat. So Krishna says, okay, put a tulsi leaf, I will eat. And that's how we follow that rule. In Vrindavan, the cooking was done by Yashoda Maiya and other mothers with love. And the cowherd boys would feed Krishna with love. So it was not imperative. And it would all be mixed with Vrindavan dust. And Vrindavan dust is the one where Tulsi Maharani is present everywhere. Tulsi Maharani is all pervasive in Vrindavan. Krishna wears the garland of Tulsi leaves. And that leaves fall in the dust. And that dust is part of the food. So it's already there. And as I told, it's for us to do it. For the Brajvasis is very different. There is very intimate relationship. So there Krishna will accept whatever they give, because they are so much imbued with love. Okay? Any more questions? Yeah, we'll take question first. You have a question or comment? Okay, yeah, Sharad.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the very wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
So in the beginning, you were telling about A and minus A and all those logic and propositions that we had studied. So this in the Prasthana Traya, there are Smriti, Shruti and then Nyaya. Just wanted to know that this Nyaya is also, these are three different ways to know Krishna, to realize Krishna, not only know. So what is exactly that Nyaya? So in that, we are using logic and proposition to understand Krishna and realize him also. So if something doesn't fits in, of course, like we cannot comprehend that particular logic, but still, then what is this Nyaya? If you can give some idea of that, how we can realize.
So Krishna and Krishna's creation. So some part of creation we can understand with our logic and finite intelligence. So that's where it's used. Some part of philosophy we can understand with the help of our logic. That's where it is used. But there's lots beyond that logic, beyond that rationality. There's lot beyond this, and that we receive, and that knowledge is revealed in the heart. So there's something which is accessible through Nyaya, through logic, and there's something which is possible to deduce through logic, which is mentioned in the scriptures. So till that it's fine, but beyond that it's knowledge which is heard and revealed in the heart. So that cannot be accessed through logic. Like we cannot use logic to understand Krishna's bodily color is Shyam. This has to be revealed by reading scriptures from the acharyas. There is no logic to understand why God is Shyam or how God is Shyam. Even modern science has some aspects which are beyond present logic. You know that. There are such things. So they already come to the point where there is reality beyond logic, beyond present logic. That's how Einstein said God does not play dice. He couldn't accept it. So same way transcendence. Krishna. Lord Brahma says in the next chapter, if you have a airplane going with the speed of mind and travels for millions of years, still you will not reach Vaikuntha. Which means our senses, mind and intelligence, we keep on using them, will not reach Vaikuntha, because he can't be accessible. Lord Brahma says one day it will happen that all the scientists combined in the world will be able to count the number of dust particles in this universe, will be able to count the atoms in this universe, will be able to count the snowflakes in this universe, but they will not be able to realize Krishna, because he is beyond finite intelligence, mind and senses. Adoksja, beyond our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, mind, intelligence, logic. In other words, he is illogical, quote unquote. Our logic is illogical. Okay?
So now, like when we use logic and proposition in mathematics also, we have, so in Nyaya also, like, we have certain set of principles, some truths are there, that if you have to agree those things, then only it goes ahead. Like the way how you said, A is true, then minus A has to be false. So similarly in spiritual life also, there has to be certain principles which are like, okay, like we accept them as, before accepting anything, okay, like we understand that Guru is there. If Guru says something, then it will be true. So such kind of logic, like such kind of propositions, such kind of facts has to be kept beforehand. But if that thing fails, then how to go ahead then in that? If there is some contradiction in some of these facts that you are telling, if A is true, then minus A has to be false. So like how to understand in our practice of spiritual life this concept?
So when we apply and act on that instructions, we need logic to act on our instruction, because we are below that. Our intelligence is below logic, our material intelligence. So when we follow the instructions, we need that logic. When we understand the instructions, we need that logic. But when we are talking about Krishna as a person and his personality and his qualities and his behavior and his habits and his likes and his dislikes, they are not according to this logic. So we are serving a person who is beyond logic. But our service should be logical when we are doing sadhana. Because we are having finite intelligence now, we can't take a leap. We can't reject our intelligence and still perform service. We can't take that leap unless we develop that attachment. Like a mother loves child. Even if the child commits a murder or steals, she still loves. And we say that's not logical. You should reject a person who commits stealing or murder. But the mother will still say, khana khaya kya nahi? Right? So love is like that. So Krishna as a person is beyond material logic. We are under material logic, so our activities depend on that. So when we receive instructions from Guru, Sadhu, Shastra and we apply it, we use logic because otherwise we can't live. But eventually we have to go beyond this. And that happens by gradual process. Right? So when you're talking about Krishna, yes, he is beyond. When you're talking about our application, okay, we still apply it. We still A is true, minus A is false. But that's not applicable to Krishna. Krishna is inside and is outside. Both are true. But to us it's not applicable.
Really, why I'm asking this question? Because there are many instances, even in Prabhupada's life, we find certain instances where it may look to a neophyte person that Prabhupada has contradicted. He is telling, following four regulative principles. We know there are few instances where Prabhupada said that, okay, if you bring the Queen of Elizabeth, like that. So here, sometimes these things, if somebody takes this as proposition that, okay, ISKCON means you are, very strict in following these four regulative principles. How can something, you contradict that particular principle? So there are certain things where we see in our practice, in our superiors or, in whatever personalities. So how to comprehend that? That's why I was asking this, that there has to be some basis of, some truths, some facts, and we cannot actually contradict that particular principle.
So there are bases. See, many principles are to be followed. At the same time, there are parameters of time, place, circumstances. Sometimes some principles at a particular time, place, circumstances may be changed by an authorized representative. And Prabhupada did that. So what you are saying is some axioms which we have to follow. And that are there. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This we have to follow. I am servant of Krishna. We have to follow. Krishna has a beautiful form. We have to follow. Right? So these are axioms. These are truths which we have to follow. This cannot be negated or contradicted while we practice devotional service. We cannot say one day in a week Krishna is not Supreme Personality of Godhead. No, Krishna and soul are different. This we have to follow. And there is some common sense logic which governs our existence while we do our day-to-day activities and services. We follow that. But when it comes to understanding Krishna's personality, we should know only our logic is not sufficient because it's beyond that. So day to day you follow logic. We are not saying no. But in intelligence we should understand if there is something contradictory that's possible in absolute truth. Absolute truth is not under it. Absolute truth is above it, beyond, transcendental. Okay? Okay, we have less time. I was requested to close at 9. It's already beyond that. So I can answer after the class. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.